Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Planning and Zoning meeting tonight, February the 5th, 2015. First order of business will be public hearings, which there are none tonight, so we'll move on into opening the regular meeting. And our first order of business will be the minutes from the January the 8th meeting.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cullors, second by Mr. Cullum to accept the minutes as submitted. Any questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mr. Deach?
Yes.
Mr. Cullum?
Yes.
Mrs. Scott?
I abstain, I was absent.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
Mr. Kohler?
Yes.
Mr. Dickey?
Yes.
Mr. Durbin?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 with one abstention and one absent. Next order of business will be discussion of special events permits with the Warren County Fair Board. So, Mr. Hamp, if you want.
Yeah, during the January 8th P&Z meeting, there was a request to invite the Fair Board to come meet with you to discuss basically bare minimum requirements on plans and being submitted for special event permits. I contacted the president, Mr. OMB, who's here this evening, along with a couple other board members, and just like to have the discussion to try to determine for sure a starting point or what we would want as a bare minimum when they're applying for the special event permits to make it a smoother process for everybody, and just try to let Paul know what we're looking for or what you guys would like to be able to make your judgments on verifying the different events are safe for not only participants but the public. And then also quest to have just a brief discussion about camping out there. I've informed Mr. OMB that we're just having discussions tonight. We're not able to change any section of code. If it's decided that we want to change the code, then we could bring it to next month after I put in the notices for the public hearings. And I believe Mr. OMB's completely aware of that, and they're here to answer any questions you have or continue the discussion on how we'd like to move forward. I did give you an example of a permit application that was just turned in January, which is more just a bare sketch. I know Paul went to the county and got an example of what they have. I printed one off their website today just to use to help out during discussion. So I could, if Mr. OMB.
So this is what we have in front of us, is the one that you got copied there in front of you there?
That is the one that Mr. OMB got from the county. I printed one similar, just off the computer, and basically I was just wanting to maybe use this as an example, maybe something, the standard 2 foot by 3 foot, so it'd be big enough to see detail on it compared to a normal just piece of notebook paper that's been turned in the past. I believe yours is what, 11 by 17 or 14 by
11 by 14,
yeah.
17, something like that, yeah.
The county may be able to make some bigger. Worst case, if he gets something marked up good that's acceptable, I mean, I can always scan it and make it bigger if that would be helpful.
I thought
There's several places that can reprint them bigger.
Because I thought we had discussed at one time, some of the members of the board had discussed at one time if they just do this one time up front, and even anybody that would come and submit an application, they could sell them what they would need to, you know what I mean? Put the cost up front, but then recoup your cost by selling it to the people that are doing the permits, and that would be
Well, like I told Jack.
Mr. Obi, can you step to the podium so the public can hear you, sir? And state your name just for the record, please.
Paul Ormby.
Thank you, Mr. Obi.
Me and Jack had a conversation today on the phone, and I was just trying to get a format of what we would need. The school is the only, right now, the only association that we basically let them go through the permit process for their mud run. Right. There's nothing else, but if we would want to, this will give us an idea of where to go from. I know Linda's diagram kind of, it works, I guess, but if we could have the picture like that, it's pretty well, it's elusive detail on, what the facility is. You're not going to change much of that. So if you made I don't know, a grid or something to show, because the only real target areas that you would apply for permits for would be the track or the motocross area. Now, if we wanted to isolate them and blow them up, I mean, I don't think that would be a problem either. Just trying to get a better idea, I mean, I'll be more than glad to make it work, just kind of tell me which direction you want me to go with it.
Mr. Dickey, you want to kind of lead this tonight a
Could-
little bit?
Can I read what I read at our last meeting, and then we'll be no misunderstanding about what we're talking about
Okay,
here?
I don't see a problem with that.
I'd like to talk about section 405-185D, special event permit. I would like to read to you a passage from our special event permit. A special event permit may be issued by the Board of Aldermen, provided that such event is not injurious to the general health, safety, and welfare of the city. The P&Z Board has been tasked with the responsibility of processing all special event permits and making a written recommendation to the Board of Aldermen for final approval. No special event permits come before the Board of Zoning Appeals for the Warren County Fair. And I asked why. I don't know why. At the Warren County Fair last July 2014, there was an accident from a race car that became airborne and went through a building, causing some personal injury. The Planning and Zoning Board needs to be briefed on what issues caused this accident and what safety measures have been put into place to make sure this will not happen in the future, so we can make an informed decision on some special event permits pertaining to that area. The Fair Board conducted a motocross event on their new track in the fall of 2014, and the P&C Board has not been briefed on the outcome of any safety issues which they feel should be in place to protect the participants and the spectators during these events. In my opinion, the main problem here is that the applicant does not have any standards by which they can give the P&Z Board the information that we need to make an informed decision by. I do not feel that an informed decision can be made from a 1,000-foot aerial view of the fairgrounds, which is only bare ground and does not show the setup of the event that the permit will cover. This is all that we have to work with now. In my opinion, we need detailed scale drawings of the fairgrounds and all the buildings, gate openings, roads, parking areas, fences, barriers, and any other permanent structures, and number all of these items on a legend on the drawing, given their description. These drawings should be given or sold to applicants by the Fair Board when they petition the Fair Board to hold a special event at their facility. Once a standard drawing has been made, a copy from that drawing could be altered to show the configuration for a mud bog, tractor pull, demolition derby, and so forth. The applicant could make copies of the drawing, and after the hearing with the P&Z Board, they could make additions or corrections for the next year's event, and after so long it will become routine and a painless process for all parties involved. I think that a member of the Warren County Fair Board should accompany the applicant through the special event process in order to answer any questions on safety in particular and any other questions that would only be known to the Fair Board. The only questions the applicant should have to answer are the ones they are physically in control of, such as parking cars, cleanup, hours of operation, security, will alcoholic beverages be sold, crowd control. I am not advocating that we stop special events until we get a standard drawing of the fairgrounds, but rather that we cooperate with each other and see that they are handled in a professional and successful manner. In the end, the applicant, the Fair Board, the P&Z Director, the P&Z Board, the Town Board, and the citizens of the community are after the same thing here, and that is to hold a successful event where everyone has a great time and everyone goes home happy, and most of all without injury. I have found that there are some unique opportunities that arise during tough situations if you only look for them. I do not know who we have to see, where we have to go, or what we have to do in order to make this happen. But I would like to see all of the P&Z Board members and the Fair Board members give this some very serious thought about what all they would like to see on the drawings and sub-drawings that would be submitted to us, as I believe it will make life much easier for everyone in the future, and the process can be executed in a timely manner and in harmony with the applicants. I am not here to place blame with anyone in this process. I am here seeking resolutions to these problems so we can become better equipped to execute our responsibility.
Thank you, Mr. Dickey.
And I would like to thank Paul and the board members for coming tonight, because
Yeah.
as soon as I contacted him the first time, he said absolutely.
Oh,
He
wow.
would be here and work together to
Right.
get this resolved.
And I think that's the key, is everybody
Yeah.
wants the same thing.
So
So
I greatly appreciate
if we work
you
from,
guys
if we
coming
work
tonight.
from this drawing here, that was presented in January, if ever, not the
The
colored one,
yeah. And I think even you can see how much difference the
Right.
one you
Oh,
brought
yeah.
tonight compared to
Right.
that, just
so I mean, at least this will
it's
tell
just
us what.
basically cover everybody's.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and I've talked to Lewis and Beatty too, that one boy over there said, I mean, he would work with us on, you know, trying to draw
Trying to
more
draw
detail.
something similar
Right.
to this.
Right, but he said the same thing, give me a direction, what you want.
Mhm.
You know, I said, because we could do this over and over and over. He said, but just give me a little guidance and we can make it happen.
Well, that's what, and you'd mentioned something that, because every application could be a little different, but most of it, what we need to do is
Well, we
get something
know
down to the bare
yeah.
bolts.
We know the buildings are not gonna be
Right.
moving, they're demoing one, but when that's done, really nothing else is gonna be moving. The track's always gonna be in the same spot. Your parking's in this, there's so much stuff that'd be the exact same every
Oh, yeah.
time. Then the individual applicant could just mark
What's
like
what
a base
extra they're-
drawing.
Right.
That's exactly what I, have the applicant take that overhead thing, mark it up, and bring it to us. Because every event's gonna change drastically. I've rented the fairgrounds myself before, and the way the fair board did their event and the way I did my event, and it was the same event essentially, was completely different.
Right.
So,
But if you take like the track area, you know, for right there in the middle by the grandstands, you know, if you've got a dimension of roughly, I think it's 88 foot wide and 350 foot long, and if they can,
Make a detail of that
right,
section.
they know that area is where they're containing it to, you know, and it's no different. I don't know the dimensions of the motocross area. If we was to do something down there, I'm say roughly you're looking at what, acre and 3/4.
Yeah,
or
and I
acre,
know
whatever it
they've
is, I
got
don't
that
know.
drawn already.
Right.
I know Beatty's got all that information.
Right. You know, so I mean, like I said, the parking lot does really come into play, you know, not necessarily. You know, you're talking about
You
the
could label it.
motorsports events and where they're gonna be at. That would give you a better idea. I know, like MMOR, they've got a baseline of how wide they want their pit, you know, for the mud run, how long they want it, how much shutdown they want after that. I don't have that information on me, I mean, but, you know, a representative of them, you know, could come with the permit application too, I mean, because they would have the answers in black and white or have it printed out, you know, something
Mhm.
like that. You know, right now, the school's the only one that we rent it to, you know, so everything else would basically fall back on us until we can get to the point of maybe getting other organizations involved, you know. But we've got to get this process done before we can step, you know, any farther forward, you know.
Mr. President, I've got a list of questions I was gonna have. You don't have to answer all these right now.
I'll try my best.
It might give us some talking lines here on what we're thinking anyway, maybe what I'm thinking. Who sets up the area around the grandstands for mud bogs, demolition derby, tractor pulls, and so forth?
The mud balls would be the MMOR organization, if they're putting an event on, which is primarily the one we use during the fair and prior. The fair board has set up the demolition derby areas for several years. The tractor pulls based on specs off of Excalibur truck and tractor pulling or MSTPA. You know, they're the ones that set the standards of, like this year, for instance, we had one track. So they moved it farther away from the grandstand area and held it closer to the stage, you know, for safety reasons. Instead of, they wouldn't pull two tracks. So they just made one, you know, so that moved them an extra 45 feet farther away from where everybody is normally setting, except the people in the pit area. You know, I mean, but that's, the different groups primarily set the footprint for it. You know, any associations were going off their recommendations.
And then my second question, I think you kind of answered, are there specific dimensions for these events, such as how wide, long, and deep is the mud bog, and where is it located in respect to the grandstands?
As far as in respect where it's at the grandstands, that I couldn't answer. You know, that you want it as far away as you possibly can.
Sure.
But like I said, that would be a question for MMOR, I think, you know, to get an honest answer.
How large are the vehicles being used in these events? I've never seen it, so I don't know.
Just figure your normal four-wheel drive pickup. Some of them are a little lighter, some of them are a little heavier, you know.
What kind of barriers are in place to protect spectators?
Concrete highway barriers and a steel guardrail reinforcement behind it on the spectator side.
Yeah. Are there any state or national safety regulations for these kind of events?
I would have to ask MMOR and MSTPA
Okay.
where their baseline's coming from.
And have you contacted anyone for setup or safety regulations for such events? In other words, you don't have them, so they have them. So
Right,
they'd
they-
be the one to answer that one too.
Right.
Who set up the motocross track?
To the one during the fair or the one last fall?
From last fall.
Chris Petros.
I think Chris did it as a safety
and
training.
Really, yeah, I mean,
It was
they
a-
put the fence on the east side of it to keep the difference from the riders to the pit, and just basically, you know, tilt the track up from the same tracks what the fair was.
Was it approved for design and safety by a state or national motocross association?
No.
Okay. Do you have a certificate of approval from a motocross association? Obviously, no, if you don't. Do you have an approved certificate for design and safety for any of the events mentioned above by a state or national association?
No.
I'm not sure that there is a state association.
I don't know if there is either.
that
but-
approves
Well, we've never been
motocross
told we
or
had to
that.
have
Yeah,
anything, so.
Yeah.
because I've done some research in the past trying to find some information and even contacting other counties that have the fairs and that to see if they had anything. And a lot of it is in regards to if you have this group putting on this event, they sort of have their in-house safety rules and things, guidelines that they go by, but I don't believe there's a statewide or a nationwide,
I think a lot of it's
Set of
based on
rules.
facility.
yeah, the different
You know.
facilities and then,
Right.
you know, I don't know all the names of the different pulling organizations or motocross groups, but I believe they sort of have for them to come to your place, they want to have this kind of a setup. They might request the straw bales or whatever,
Mhm.
tires, but as far as a state organization, I don't believe there's anything in existence that I was able to find doing a quick search.
I do not believe that an applicant for a special event permit can answer these technical questions when appearing before this board. I think this is the main problem area where this board is not getting enough information from you or the applicant to make an informed decision to send a recommendation on to the Board of Aldermen for their approval.
And
My opinion.
Well, and that's fine. In regards to the accident back in July, that won't happen again because those vehicles, now they've decided they don't want to run in that facility. Try to tell them.
What kind
beforehand.
of car was it and all that?
I call it like a sand drag. You know,
Yeah.
it was a tube chassis structure with a large motor. Lightweight, cheap speed, and put as much horsepower to it as you can. We've talked to MMOR about, in regards to the schools event, and talked to them about for event at the fair this year, and everybody has decided that they're not even gonna put the fast tracks in anymore because of location. You know, there again, some areas have more room, they can do that, have larger shutdown area or whatever.
Yeah.
Years ago, they used to have a shutdown device on the tail end of the vehicle. It had if it was a 150-foot pit, for say, they had a 160-foot cable. That cable was nailed down to the ground, and when that vehicle hit the 160 foot, it shut the motor off.
Yeah.
Well, somebody got tired of walking back and rolling the cable up and starting the car up again, so they just throw the cables to the side, and, you know, that's what I asked them gentlemen was, you know, where do you draw your line on your safety issues? You know,
Yeah.
why did you quit doing it? So, because of the speed. You know, this guy didn't want to stop. He wanted to take off, keep going. But like I said, those cars won't be back, you know.
Are these outfits responsible for that event and all that?
The association is pretty well, they're the ones running it right.
Okay.
And I think ultimately it still falls back on the insurance of the people putting it on,
Yeah.
but they're supposed to be the ones that know best,
Yeah,
you know? I mean, we was fortunate in July, nobody was hurt. You know, I think the gentleman that was in the car, he's had a long road to recovery, but, you know, whether it's drag racing, tractor, anything, you strap motorcycles, you strap into something that's putting out that much horsepower, you're taking a risk. It's just
yeah.
keep the risk to you, not everybody else.
Right.
You know, is the main thing. I mean, years ago, they went through that with MAR when they was in Westfield, you know, safety precautions, but I said, you never be too careful,
True.
you know,
That's true.
but if it makes noise, and throws dirt, everybody likes to watch it.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that one area where, around the grandstand, if we had a drawing of that area with dimensions on it, we don't have that right now.
Right.
If we had it with some dimensions on it, then you could have a mud bog dimensions, tractor pull dimensions, or whatever
wow.
else you have there.
Right.
If those dimensions were there, then that's the standards, basically, as far as I'm
So,
concerned.
I mean, I think that's definitely doable. I mean, we can,
And you say you know the people that have the standards on how they set it up.
well, each organization's gonna be a little bit different, right? You
Yeah.
know, but we can, you know, I mean, a phone call and a fax, they'll send their requirements of what you gotta have, and I don't know about the derbies, Zach, do they, you know anything about how big area they normally put up on there, or?
It varies per event, per location.
Okay.
You know, I don't have the exact dimensions, just more along the line of visual aid of where they usually block everything.
I think the information can be gotten hold of though.
It can be gotten hold of, yes.
So, I mean,
I mean, it'd be something you could, if you had a base drawing, you could easily sketch it on there and say it's approximately 300 feet by 200 or whatever in this location.
Right. I mean,
I don't think it's a problem with these other outbuildings. They're permanent, they're sitting there. This area is kind of permanent, but
right.
you reconfigure it with the different
Exactly.
things. And there's no dimensions to it. You don't know how far the people are supposed to be away from it.
Well, and like I said, when they had the mud pit and that fast track they call it, when they're running side by side, it squeezes everything down. Like I said,
Yeah.
by eliminating the one, now you're able to move the mud pit farther to the center of the track.
Yeah.
So you're farther away from your spectators, you know.
Yeah.
They did request this year that instead of last year, they run everything from basically the east to the west, of course, because it went into the building. Now they want to run to the east, which would be into the pit area, you know, with the, which there's access down there to build a berm, a barricade, and, you know, multiple layers of straw, if that's what they see they want to do.
Yeah.
But the vehicle speed that's coming out of the mud pit is nothing like the ones that was on that fast track.
Yeah.
You know, because like I said, there's nothing slowing them down. You know, so it's quite a bit different there. But I think they recommend if they do 120 or 150 foot pit, they want a minimum of 180 foot shutdown,
Yeah.
which, you know, is 350 feet minimum. Now with that other building going out, you know, that could actually expand a little bit, you know, more for like the schools event, you know, because they could have a farther shutdown area.
According to this drawing here, your mud pit is 18 foot wide by 130 foot long. You have 240 foot of shutdown area and 51 foot from the beginning of the pit.
Is that off Linda's drawing?
Is it
It's
Zach?
on this drawing. So it needs to be located on that drawing as to where, is that what you guys are
If you got,
Zach?
like?
can you come on up and
Yeah.
speak real quick? Can you repeat what you just said so the public can hear that too, sir? Thanks, Zach. Could you state your name for the record?
Zach Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
According to this drawing that was submitted for the fair board, the mud pit that they are wanting is 18 foot wide by 130 foot long. It has a 240 foot shutdown area as well as 51 foot from the entrance to the pit, to the start of the pit. And this is on this drawing, this sketch here. Now, from what I'm gathering, P&Z would like that pit drawn out on the aerial view that we have with the dimensions of how wide our track is and where the mud pit would be located in that track.
And the same for the tractor pull specs and the mud, or the demo derby and everything else.
Yeah.
Correct.
And these specs can be a standard as far as.
Right.
As far as those go, if those standards are coming from the people that's actually running this thing.
Gotcha.
And if you're doing a base drawing, like you said, where you know you've got the guardrails, have that labeled, because you're obviously not moving your guardrails.
No,
Your
not
jersey
really.
barriers, they basically stay in the same place
They
too,
raise
right?
up
You
and
might
raise up.
change one or two to
The only
make
ones
an
that get
entrance or
changed are at
exit.
the ends.
Yeah, but other than that, they're basically in this, that kind of stuff you could probably put on this base drawing so it's there every time.
Right.
And then if for some reason you're changing one or two to change an entrance or exit, you could, just scribble it on there and make a detail that these are being moved for this event to sort of help make sure that it'd be to everybody's benefit to have as much safety-related items
Oh, well.
labeled on here.
I mean, I think that's very doable to get, we can get the specs from the associations and relay that information back to a grid or whatever format you want.
And even if if you have a drawing, if you get one drawn to scale, even the applicant could scale it on there and say, here's my dimensions, here's basically where it's gonna be.
But if we put it together and we got the.
If you know you're gonna use it at the same
contact
spot,
information
yeah.
on there, that way if you've got a question,
Well,
where did the specs come from, you know who to contact.
well, that was my next question then. So each event that comes by way of there, you're saying they do have an organization that kind of overlooks the regulations.
Right,
of this
sets the
event.
guidelines for them, right.
So is it possible, you said it's possible to call them, is it possible to get a copy? Let's say I'm having an event there, is it possible for me that I'm gonna have this event, can I get a copy of those specs from
It
that
should
organization?
be in their contract when they sign it.
Okay, my point is that, how hard would it be to make that a part of the application process?
To
That they
send
can
that
send
in
that
too?
with us, so we can pre-read it, so it saves us 30 minutes of reading it the night we get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And then when because you're gonna send the drawing to us that's gonna have that information on there.
Yep.
We can read along with it to clarify any questions that we have. I mean, that seems like a pretty simple fix.
Yeah, could easily, if it's included in the application,
Yeah,
because you see, what I printed out for you is exactly what I give
right.
the P and Z and the board, so if you have a pamphlet or something on there specific, specifications, I'll just make sure it's included in the packet when I present it to the P and Z
So-
commission and the board.
So I think we're all in agreement that, and Mr. Dickey, thank you for bringing this to the board last month, and I know, I'm not picking on Mr. Dickey, but since he's the one that brought it up, if he's okay with that, and I think that's,
Yes.
the person that brings up the concern needs to be taken care of first, and then we go from there. And if you're comfortable with that, I think that's the direction we'd like to go as a board, that we have a standard drawing that can be adapted to each event, but yet each association that's gonna host that event needs to include in their application process the specs that go along with the
Some of
drawing
their
that they're gonna
details.
do, that we can put two and two together.
I don't know, I don't think he was done with that paper yet, I think he had a few more on there, did he?
No, that,
You know-
Don't encourage him, Paul.
You know Mr. Dickey.
No, I'm just making sure I didn't leave one out.
the one thing I do want to mention, and why I keep talking about this, the application for a special event permit, and this is off our event thing here, shall be filed with the zoning official by the individual responsible for the event. Well, the people that bring it in and come up here, as far as we're concerned, they're the ones responsible
Right.
for this event, and that's why we ask them questions, and
Oh,
they don't have any answers to it.
Right.
I mean, that's our problem.
Oh, yeah,
They get
Wow.
flustered, we get flustered.
understandable.
Well, and it comes down to the fact that we don't want to put a stamp of approval on
No.
something that we don't understand, and then they get
No.
frustrated, and rightfully so, we understand where they're coming from too, so I think this will just be better for
Yes,
all parties involved.
and I'm sure we can improve on it as time goes by. At
Oh,
least
yeah.
it's a good step in the right direction.
It won't hurt nothing, because like I said, put a package together, we've got it, and then in the future, if you wanna incorporate something else to it, because I don't know if these type of events will go on forever, I have no idea, times change. So, just
But
have to work with it.
But as a city, we like the fact that we can host things that bring
Oh, wow.
outsiders in, so
Sure.
we're all wanting to be on the same page
Right.
there and be good neighbors to each other, so. And I appreciate you coming in, Mr. Owenby,
No
and
problem.
Mr. Smith, you guys coming in. Anybody
Yep.
else have any questions tonight for Mr.?
We did have one other comment from our phone conversation.
Okay.
right now, for our existing code, camping is prohibited
You talked about.
out there at the fairgrounds. Paul's been contacted by a couple different groups, or one group in particular that's interested in possibly doing like a 3-day camp event there where they would come and camp at night but go to different events in the area during the day. And just a open conversation on your guys' feelings of, is that something we would want to consider looking at, possibly changing the code, that section of the code, to make it permitted, like if they have an approved special event permit, or, you know, I don't want to speak for you, but it's my understanding you're not wanting to
We're
open
not
a
wanting to open a
campground out
campground by
there.
no means, but
Just
there
some
are
different
some
things.
organizations that want,
And like the
you
Boy
know.
Scouts last year,
Right.
I think, or the year before, whenever that was, that
that,
turned out not with the best results because of how it went down.
Right.
But is it worth considering looking at the code to see if that would be something that you guys would consider wanting to put forward to the Board of Aldermen to allow camping on limited basis for special events, or during a special event, when they have a special event permit approval?
because when the group that contacted me, I called Jack right away because I couldn't give him an answer, you know, so I called Jack to find out. Last October, I believe, we had a brief meeting one night, and Chris was here, and he said we have a facility that, you know, can do things that's unique to the city, and I agreed with that. And one of the things was, he said, you could have camping out there, you know, with the proper done. He said, nobody else can do that in the city. I said, well, that's, you know, something to look forward to, that if we can work into it. I said, by no means, I don't want people staying out there 2 or 3 weeks at a time, you know, but there are circumstances where these organizations want to come in and have access to the kitchen facility, to the restrooms, and the one group was Missouri Ozark Valley, and they're a non-for-profit organization that study caves in the area.
MVOR.
Yes, sir. They primarily, right now, base a lot of their trips on the I-44 corridor. They're trying to move it up this way, and they're from based Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Arkansas, a lot of area around here. Now, the gentleman described to me that they're talking twice a year, roughly 300 to 400 people, but they just camp there at night, and then they go tour the different facilities throughout the day. If that's their trips are triggered, whatever. I mean, it works for them. But they need a facility that will warehouse these people, basically. And then the only other thing that they requested, because they needed a kitchen for their banquet for the Friday night, Saturday night, but then they wanted to have like a bonfire. I mean, it went pretty great detail of what all was going to be on. I mean, you're talking up to 300 or 400 people in town for 2 or 3 days. They're going to spend money.
Yeah.
You know, especially coming in and out for driving from here to Rolla or wherever, you know, where they're going. He said they'll run, you know, 60 to 80 miles going on these tours. It sounds neat, but like I said, I couldn't give them an answer, and I think they went to Montgomery this year to use their facility because they're not restricted.
Where would, on this drawing here, where would camping take place?
I mean, he was telling me tents, so I would
Yeah,
say
that's what
primarily, you could start on that, if you go to where that lake's at. I mean, if you wanted to go where that lower driveway was in, get as far away from any houses as you possibly
Right.
could, start out in that back part of that parking lot, you know, I mean, because that's the only area. Like I said, you're not bound up on nobody. I know during the fair, they camp, which would be the upper left-hand corner of that picture there, along that back road there in the back fence line. We've got
You got some
outlets and
utilities up
stuff,
there, right?
receptacles there just for the campers for the week of the fair that's been donated over years ago. But, you know, putting those tents up there close to like Fred's house and that, I don't think that would be
Put
very
it over
good.
in that northwest corner, but Fred's
Well, we sing
know.
at night, Fred can come out and sing with us.
That's right. You know, so I mean, there's, like I said, you've got a lot of area out there that you could do it, or, I mean, like I said, that building on the west end, I mean, there's options there, or stick them out all in the parking lot. I don't know. I mean, they tell you one thing, you don't know if it'd be 10 people or 200. I mean, he said it varies, but they try to set a footprint up and get everybody pre-registered so you'd have an idea ahead of time, you know. I mean, that's just one organization. It's the first time, you know, I've been contacted on anything like it, so I'm just, looking to see what the options are.
I thought we had kind of discussed camping out there a couple years ago when the chamber wanted to do an event out there that involved some people with wigwams or something, and they wanted to stay in their wigwams, and that was an issue. But I thought we had actually changed it to where it was allowed, so apparently we discussed it but never did
No, because
make any
I
changes.
specifically asked the city attorney after Paul's phone conversation.
Right, oh, I'm.
Currently, it's prohibited, but that's why we thought it'd at least be worth the discussion, because here's a chance for them to have a couple more events a year out there that could help out, if that's something you guys are interested in pursuing. If not, we can leave it as is, but
Right.
I know they're trying to find keep it, as many events out there as they can.
Like I
It's
said,
gonna be
that's not a
helpful to
motorsport
them.
event. I mean, and it's, to me, that's 100% income into the city, because they're coming here to, like I said, camp, do whatever. It'd be different if they was wanting to put on a whole big production
Right.
on facility that day, to me. But they're wanting to be able to keep everybody together in one confined area, is what he described it to me as. And I'm sure there's other organizations out there, like the Boy Scouts or whatever, that's all they're needing. Not gonna have 6 different bands over the next 25 hours playing, stuff like that's gonna make a bunch of noise. So it's just food for thought on our part, because then that way, if it is something that would possibly get in the works, when they call, I can tell them, either we've got a process to go through or we don't,
Why wouldn't we entertain it?
Well, that's what I say.
I was gonna say, I don't see
People are
a.
camping out there now.
It's like I said during the Declaration of Independence, there's not a topic too hot to debate, so we can debate.
Hey, put on a permitted basis, they have to apply for a permit.
The special event permit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like as long as we're in control of it.
So you do the same type of thing as this, where they come in and they say, this is the area where we're gonna put our tents, we are gonna use, because I think the requirements require that where they're, what restrooms they're using, or if they're gonna
And they
supply
can
extra
easily label all
restrooms
that
and-
on his main drawing,
Yeah,
where all the,
Right.
because you're not moving the restrooms.
Right.
Yeah, I actually thought we had minimally headed that direction when we were approached by the chamber, and I guess maybe it just simply got dropped because they they decided not to do that portion of the event, but I certainly wouldn't have a problem with entertaining it.
So like for that one, if you've got 300-400 people for a bonfire, where is this giant bonfire going to be that would?
I would say the only safe place you could put a building type fire would be right in the middle of the track. Just
Well, that's
for
what I'm
any
saying, something that's
safety.
not gonna leave a permanent mar out there.
Right. I mean, because all the fescues and the grasses that's around there, if you would go anywhere other than on that hard clay, because that stays dirt year long. Because then you would have no fire risk, potentially fire risk anywhere close to it. You try to build it down, like I said, in the parking lot or back by the motocross track or anything like that, then basically, we can clean up some ashes on a clay surface.
Hey,
You
there's
burn- you
there's
burn-
another dimension for a bonfire.
Yeah.
Well,
That's right. It all work in
not
there.
everybody would attend the bonfire, Some people are gonna be pretty well bushed.
Well, that's what I say.
Spending the day
Right.
crawling through caves.
Right. Well, like I said, I had, probably
Yeah.
total 3 conversations with the gentleman, and he gave me the gist of what they was wanting to do, and like I said, it sounded intriguing as far as to bring up the amount of people in, that they wasn't just gonna be hanging out there all day, they had places to go. His big interest was to get them on the I-70 corridor, get a little closer to some people, and then he said they have thought he said in September they have an annual banquet every year, and that must be a pretty big draw. He said that was a little bit larger scale, but he didn't say anything about the camping on the banquet deal, unless I misunderstood him. I could be wrong there, but he did say that they have, scheduled deals, I think twice a year for their exploration parts of the capes and that. So,
But I
They've
think,
been doing that a long time.
they got a pretty neat website. I went and looked at it to make sure if he was blowing smoke or if it was actually somebody that, like I said, he says I'm with this group. I can't, during the day I couldn't check it, but that night I looked it up and everything he told me was pretty well there in black and white, So,
I think if we want to discuss it, we probably need to
put it on next month's
it
agenda
on the
so I can have
next-
the public hearing?
Because there's no need to wait till somebody approaches him and then
Yeah.
he still can't give them an answer.
Right.
Well, that's sort of what we were having during our phone conversation, that we can, since we're already meeting, discussing the track requirements and that, get
Right.
your guys' feelings on it, and then if needed, I can put it in the paper so we can make the March meeting.
Do we need a motion to put it on the agenda, or can you just?
I would prefer that if you guys, then it's official.
Okay. Then I would move that the question of camping on the fairgrounds be put on next month's agenda.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Deach, second by Mr. Dickey to put the agenda, on the agenda next month about camping at the campgrounds, at the fairgrounds. Any questions or comments? Roll call vote?
Mrs. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
Mr. Kohler?
Yes.
Mr. Dickey?
Yes.
Mr. Durbin?
Yes.
Mr. Deach?
Yes.
And Mr. Cullum?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0 with one absent. And once again, thank you for coming
Oh,
out.
no
If you have any other
problem.
questions?
If that's gonna be on next month's meeting, can I try to get a proposed plan to meet your needs, to have a little bit more, present something by that meeting?
Absolutely.
For your diagrams and see if I can get that put together, or at least get started on it anyway, and we'll keep working on it.
Yeah. no
Yeah,
problem.
on that, we don't have to have a public hearing if
No.
you're just, bringing in your
Right.
standard drawing. So
Well, like I
I don't
said-
have to get that in the newspaper.
Right.
So basically, as long as, we have enough notice that it's posted on the agenda, so that would be fantastic.
Okay,
Yeah.
If
and
you
that
did
meeting would be the,
Fifth.
the
The fifth.
5th of March.
Short month.
There you go.
Losing 3 days.
All right, I mean,
Homework's due in 4 weeks, sir.
See if we can't get that put together and bring it in then.
Sounds good.
That'd be
There'll be other
fantastic.
questions on that night for the camping aspect too, so,
That's awesome.
all right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you guys for
Appreciate you
coming, we greatly appreciate it.
Yes.
Next order, go
Can I
ahead.
add one more thing?
You may.
I'm assuming if we're going to talk about this next month,
Next
could you
email.
maybe have some verbiage kind of thrown together to at least, as a starting spot?
I think it would be real simple if you look, I've got that section of code in your packet, 405185, under B, where it says private or for-profit camping are specifically disallowed in this district. If we just put comma, unless part of an approved special event permit, I mean, that would sort of do it in one sentence without reinventing the wheel, or however you guys would like to see it. I'm sure Mr. Greville will look at what I recommend and put in his thoughts on it, but it might be something that simple, just add that
that's-
sentence.
That's fine, if we just kind of have some, at least a place to start, maybe.
Mhm.
Sorry, go on.
No, that's great.
No, I appreciate all the help, because if I write this, it's better if I know what you guys want than to bring it, and then we gotta change it and bring it back, so.
But yeah, I think that's, from what I'm hearing, that's exactly what we're looking for, is just that it has to be part of that special event permit.
And if you guys wanted to make it just part of the special event permit, or if you wanna say not exceeding X amount of days at one time,
Yeah.
Anything like that, if, to try to protect and make sure that it doesn't become a year-round
Right.
campground out there, since that's not the intent. I think it'd be pretty easy to include it, so if you guys think about that, just let us know, we can surely put it in there.
Okay.
Thanks for the discussion. And next will be the ADM 69A approval request update.
That was just to let you guys know that at the January 20th Board of Aldermen meeting, they did not approve changing the zoning grid, but they did ask the city attorney to create a new definition or guidelines for like a home care, daycare, and that'll be coming back on the March meeting. So I was just wanting you guys to be aware of that. We're going to have a public hearing for definitions because he's creating a new definition. We will have a public hearing for the home occupation because has to change part of that section of code regarding home occupations. And then also they recommended changing Appendix A for making it possibly in the R1 and R2 zoning districts. So just keep you guys updated on where it went. As you all know, it's on YouTube if you want to watch the meeting.
Yeah.
But, so that'll be coming back next month too.
Sounds good. And we'll close the meeting at this time and open it up to you for any other stuff.
That's it. Basically, we got it all done during the meeting. Appreciate you guys.
Anybody else have anything for the good of the group? Entertain a motion for
So
adjournment.
moved.
Second.
Mr. Deach, second by Mrs. Scott. All in favor say aye. Aye. Have a good night. Thank you.